You are listening to 100X Gaming on the 100X podcast. Today, we've got one of the most prominent people in all of crypto gaming joining us. We've got Jiho, Jeff Zerlin, the co-founder of Sky Mavis, Axie Infinity, and Ronin blockchain. Jeff, you have pioneered play-to-earn gaming, built the #1 NFT project of all time by trading volume, and built one of the biggest blockchains by daily active users. You guys are essentially speed running and sprinting to the front of the pack right now. We're stoked to have you on. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for the invite.
Yeah, man. I would love to start with your perspective on why crypto gaming is going to win. Simplified, it feels like nobody believes in crypto gaming or Web3 gaming or whatever you want to call it. Those of us that have chosen to double down over here essentially feel like we're fanatics. Why have you guys put all of your eggs in the crypto basket? What is your crypto gaming thesis at Ronin?
Gamers are the everyday people that are by nature the most familiar, the most primed to become adopters of crypto. They already know how to use digital currencies, right? They already spend a lot of their time online. They already have friends from all over the world, right? So, and a lot of the attributes of gamers just perfectly fit with crypto. And so, yeah, that's bottom line.
Yeah, makes sense. I agree. I want to ask you a pretty hyper-specific question. I think this is probably the most written down question I've ever put on the show. Most of the teams that we talk to are focusing heavily on how to onboard the next million users to their games from Web2, non-crypto users. In other words, they're looking at traditional gamers, not crypto users like myself. You guys have seemingly done the opposite or done both at the same time. You have found gamers inside of crypto, or you've converted degens into players. But I have noticed something odd lately, and that is that broader crypto is sleeping on the gaming niche entirely. They think that we're essentially illegitimate, not close enough to reality. We're shoved into the corner of crypto. We feel like the outcasts. I saw one of my favorite crypto conferences that is happening this year the other day was essentially totally ignoring gaming. So I looked up these stats last night in preparation for this conversation. Of the top crypto conferences in the world in 2024, here's how much attention they are giving crypto gaming. Token 2049 Dubai had 3 speakers who work in the gaming niche out of 208. Consensus had 20 out of 678. Permissionless will have 1 out of 115. Token 2049 Singapore, the largest of all of them, will have 5 out of 177, 0 out of 70 for mainnet. The picture's clear. As a space, we are trying to convince non-crypto users to buy into Web3 gaming, and we haven't even successfully convinced native crypto to catch our vision. How do you guys prove them wrong? You build products that crypto users should care about. If you could bring them into the fold, it feels like it's over. It feels like we've won. How can you capture the hearts of both the crypto space and then onboard new users as well?
The users that we're waiting for are not going to be totally random people off the street. From what we've seen over the last 6 years, right? Your next batch of users, no matter what you're building, in crypto is going to come from the friends, the family members, and the followers of your current community members, right? That's why in Web3, especially Web3 gaming, it's so important to build an amazing golden cohort of users, because all of your future users will actually be descended from the basically line of referral from those initial users, right? So why is our current community, right, really generous and really into gaming and really good at making content, really artistic? Because our first users were, right? And so this is something that we learned during fraternity recruitment, right? Stop trying to onboard random people off the street to your pledge class, right? The people who are joining your fraternity. Yep. The people who are joining your fraternity are going to be your friends and family, right? Your friends that seem like they would be good fits for your fraternity. And so I think there's really lessons in that for, all of crypto gaming, all of Web3. And that's what we've done, right? So we've built a community. Right now, Ronin is the #1 most used blockchain on a daily basis, right? With 2.2 million daily active addresses. 50% of these people are totally new to crypto. 80% of them are totally new to NFTs. 25% of them don't even have a bank account. And so, we've largely done it. Definitely the rest, definitely the crypto space tends to sleep on gaming,
Yep.
on NFTs in general. That's not new to us, right? Like, we've been around since the days of CryptoKitties, 6 years. Attention comes and goes. And you don't want the success or failure of the success of your product to be dependent on getting recognition from a group of people whose attention kind of moves back and forth. They will eventually get excited about it. NFTs and gaming, that's for the entire crypto space. These are late cycle type interests,
Right?
Because they're the things that you go into. Oh, you made a lot of money on alts and majors, right? You go into NFTs to flex, to spend it, when you're bored when the cycle is starting to wind down. That's what we saw last cycle, right? Is NFTs and gaming are the things that you put your money into after you've already made a ton, right? So I think it's still a bit early in the cycle for gaming and for NFTs in general, because we always talk about, we need things that people are going to want to spend a lot of money on for fun, for intrinsic motivation, right? Well, right now people want to make money because it's early in the cycle. You can't blame them, right? And ETH hasn't even broken all-time highs. Bitcoin has barely broken all-time highs, right? And so right now is like the time in the cycle where people are not focused on spending money for fun, for intrinsic motivation to flex, right? That flexing aspect tends to come later in the cycle. And I think that once that happens, NFTs, gaming, right? That's when they do best.
You've made your bag, then you buy the NFT, then you play the game, then you have fun with it. Solid.
Yeah, otherwise, right now, if people were buying NFTs, it's going to be very speculative, I guess, in the general, right, the average crypto trader, right? But I will also say that what's happening on the Ronin network is bucking this trend, right? So NFT volume on the Ronin network is actually up 10x since the beginning of the year. And we're doing over $1 million.
Because of, so is that, I mean, you just highlighted two different reasons you spend on those. One is speculation, one is flexing. With Ronin, do you think like what's happening on your guys' network, is that because of speculation, or is that because of flexing, or the intrinsic fun? Like, what is that coming from? Before we dig into everything this episode has to offer, we want to highlight the awesome partners who sponsor this podcast and make it possible for us to work full-time on 100X. They're legends, and we appreciate them for supporting us. Let's talk about Reactor, a proof-of-work blockchain that introduces a brand new economic model, deep-in mining software, a gaming distribution platform, the RKR token, and their game, Minions of Steel, that's proving their thesis by seamlessly integrating proof-of-work token mining with gaming. Through allowing players to mine with their own GPU while playing, not only do they essentially make gaming free, they make software free, and they present an AI-proof income for everyone. If you want to take a glimpse into the future and get there early, explore Reactor's ecosystem at the link below. If you've ever found yourself saying, man, I wish I could just pick up a book that quickly explained what the heck DeFi is, where it came from, and how I can actually win in this Wild West, then I might have just found the answer to your dreams. The DeFi Revolution by Nickel and Decker just dropped on Amazon, physical and digital. It's the most up-to-date book in the world that tells the entire story of decentralized finance and where it might go next. If you want to know how to tell the difference between degen scams and real opportunities, or you want the perfect gift for your friend who's new to crypto, you can get it on Amazon today.
It's because for gaming NFTs, you buy them, right, to be able to use them in game, right? And so there's more of that, hey, like I'm buying these into these projects because I believe in them, because I want to play these games, right? There's actually there's actual more utility, right? But the big volume in NFTs, right, tends to come from, right, when people are buying these things like first edition Charizards or Alpha Black Lotuses, etc., right? And that's so that type of volume, right, like I think should come at the end of the cycle.
I think you made a really good point in terms of who, as Web3 gaming, crypto gaming, we should be focusing on in terms of onboarding. You're right. We're not going to bring random people who don't even care about gaming to begin with to actually love crypto gaming. With that said in mind, I think we have seen that, and in that attempt to try to onboard regular Web2 gamers, we have been hit with a lot of backlash because they think NFTs are a scam, crypto gaming is a scam. It's all a Ponzi scheme that never seems to go anywhere without really seeing the intrinsic value of the technology itself. Where do you see Ronin coming in here and helping solve that problem to show them like, hey, this is not a scam. We're actually just trying to add more value back to gamers themselves?
Always think about the Philippines and always think about Argentina, okay? These markets will simplify your understanding of crypto immensely. It's actually very hard for Europeans and Americans to understand the value of crypto because we have relatively stable financial systems. We have relatively stable currencies. We don't have relatives all over the world where we need to use the international banking system. All right, so this is why it's important to think about the Philippines and think about Argentina. And if you ever want to understand why crypto works, talk to a Filipino person or an Argentinian person, okay? Okay, here's why. In the Philippines, there's a huge overseas population of Filipino workers. And what happens is Filipinos will leave the Philippines to work in places like America, Dubai, Hong Kong, Singapore, and earn wages there because the wages are higher, and they'll send them back to the Philippines. But when you want to do this, you have to do something called an international remittance. And the fees on these things are super, super, super freaking high. And right, so typically you'll use something like Western Union, and they'll be taking like 5 to 10% fees on sending these international wire transfers, right? Okay, crypto, boom, you don't need to do that, right? Like send your ETH or send your USDC, off-ramp, minimal fees, right? So boom, right? Like we're already seeing, okay, like to me, putting Western Union out of business, that's like one of the first orders of business for this entire crypto movement, right? Get rid of traditional financial rails for international remittance and replace them with rails that are open to anyone, right? If you guys have ever sent money overseas internationally using the SWIFT system, like you will basically get infinitely bullish on crypto, right? Like I think a lot of the people who don't understand crypto, they literally have never used a traditional banking account before, right? Like I don't, maybe like right Gen Zs, even millennials, right? Like whenever I go to the bank, whenever I try to send money using my bank account, I just get 100% clarity on
just so
why we're here, right? Go to a bank, just go to a bank and you'll see. Okay, next. So we talked about Filipinos and international remittance. Now let's talk about Argentinians. This is maybe even more obvious, right?
Yeah.
Argentinians, there's no Argentinian that doesn't understand the value of crypto, of Bitcoin, of ETH. Because they've seen, right, hundreds, thousands of % inflation in their everyday lives, right? You're not even allowed to buy more than 10,000 US dollars if you live in Argentina, right? So many people in Argentina know about USDC, they know about Tether. It's actually like totally ingrained into their way of life already. And how did Argentina get that way, right? Like tons of debt. Government mismanagement, right? So, but my thesis is that, right, like Argentina is like what the rest of the world will eventually look like because of the huge amounts of debt that have been run up over the last decades. And so yeah, you need to have this international perspective. You cannot have this like European or American perspective. I mean, you can also think about Europe. Cyprus, right? They took everyone's money straight out of their bank account because of the European debt crisis. That was 2012. Ever since that moment, I've believed in Bitcoin.
With that in mind, do you think when we talk about the next 10 million users, they wouldn't be coming from Europe or America then, right? Should games and chains be focusing on other places in the world where that idea of crypto is more obvious to them than having to convince someone who thinks it's a scam?
That's been where we've had success, right? The majority of the people that have been onboarded onto Ronin, right, they're coming from places like the Philippines, Vietnam, Indonesia, Brazil, Argentina, right? This is where the majority of the people that are coming, right? It's still important to have this geographic diversity, of course, because you also need to have a variety, right? Whales, and a lot of the whales are right in the States and in Europe as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. I would love to get into specifically Ronin and why you guys are different than some of the other chains in the space, and why are you guys unique not just to traditional EVMs? I mean, you referenced that you guys have the most daily active addresses right now, but also unique to other gaming chains like Immutable.
We actually have players, right? So Ronin has the most players confirmed, backed by all of the reputable data sites, Token Terminal, Nansen. So we actually have players, right? So that's what we've always specialized in, right? Is basically building things that actually have confirmed traction. So 2 million daily active addresses. We have Pixels with over 700,000 DAU, over 12 million downloads of the Ronin wallet. So how did we get here? Well, we focus on onboarding the right games, right? I think a lot of people have, okay, like we're just going to spray out a ton of grants and hope that some of these stick. Whereas for us, we focused on, in the beginning, working with the teams that we feel most bullish on, and incubating them, giving them a lot of tech resources, giving them a super warm introduction to our community, right? More of that like special touch that's needed. That's what we've seen to be working, right? Is like finding the right teams that are able to actually ship quickly and put out a game. Because I think a lot of people, they over optimized for it's like look maxing, right? Like, oh, how does the game look?
It looks really pretty,
right? Because that was what was good in 2021. We're not going to be able to make the game anyway by the end of the cycle, so let's just sell something that looks really cool, right? So that's what they maximized for. And then, okay, obviously they had to deliver on it, but that takes like 3, 4, 5 years, right? But what are we seeing to be working is like stuff like Pixels, right? Pixels is a pixel game. It's not super intensive and not super long to develop from a graphical standpoint, right? So stuff that actually ships. Teams that know how to talk to community, teams that know how to put out product, teams that know how to work with Web3. These are the types of teams that have been doing well on the Ronin network, and I think we have a monopoly on those types of teams right now.
Yeah, so essentially find the games that are going to actually bring in players and incubate and support the heck out of them. Practically, how do you guys help those teams? Like what kind of support, if a game was building right now and they were trying to decide, hey, which of these 4 or 5 chains should I go on? And I'm looking for support. What kind of support are they going to get from you guys?
So first of all, right, like the community is our number one offering, right? And that's not totally up to us, right? It's like there is this opportunity to capture the attention of this rabid fan base that already has a Ronin wallet download, that already knows how to play Web3 games, right? You're not going to have to explain all of the things that you would typically have to explain and teach to a prospective Web3 gamer, right? So there's that community that they get access to. So I would say that the community
that's huge.
Is our number one, right? The number one advantage of deploying on Ronin, right? So we facilitate the interaction and the access to this rabid community, and we also have tons of technical resources, advising, right? Here are all the mistakes, right? Even that we made with Axie. Right, so we're able to help them navigate, right, issues with the community, right, how to roll out the token. We try to offer a lot of stuff that's not financial capital, and we try to help you maximize your chances of actually getting users and winning, because that's actually what serious entrepreneurs want to do, right? They don't want to just like raise a ton of money and live a comfortable life, and that's actually really bad for a serious entrepreneur, right? Like you actually want to be getting users. That's the way to succeed, right? Like that's actually what you should be doing. And we look to maximize those chances for the teams that are building on top of Ronin.
I like that. Yesterday we had a space where we asked a panel of games a question as to what mattered most to them when they chose a chain to call home. And there were two things that really stood out in that conversation. And one was a chain that allowed onboarding to be as easy as possible. I think you guys have knocked that out of the park with the Ronin wallet, and pretty much anyone that lives on Ronin already knows how to use that to a T. The other side, and I think this is a more interesting question, is blurring the line between Web2 and Web3, not really needing the gamer to know that it's crypto, because I think a lot of people believe that in the long term, gamers won't need to know that they're messing with NFTs or messing with tokens. But from the sounds of it, you guys are very focused on that idea of like, hey, all of our gamers and all of our users already know how to use a wallet, already know how to use the blockchain. Do you guys think that will need to be blurred in the future, or are you guys just happy with saying, hey, our users are crypto savvy to begin with?
I think the lines will blur a bit. For example, apparently 10% of the people who play Pixels don't know that they're playing a blockchain game.
That's crazy.
They just know that they can cash out, right? Or that, oh, I use this app and I can somehow cash out to Gcash, for example, right? Gcash is like Cash App or Venmo of the Philippines. And so I do think that the lines will get blurred, but I also think that we need to realize that, hey, like people are going to find out that these things are powered by crypto as well. This is why I was just talking to someone about this. Web3 games, Web3 in general, rely on high trust distribution channels because there is a lot of money involved, right? If you want to make it so that right, like you can rely on lower trust distribution channels, well then it's like you have to make it so that people don't have to spend money, people don't have to use as much of the blockchain, right? So you have to water down your product a lot. And then the value of the users might also decrease as well, right? So that's kind of the way that I see it, is if you want to use lower trust distribution channels, you will also have to basically lower the potential value of the users that are coming via those channels.
Which is interesting because I think one of the main parts of being in crypto, like one of the things that sold me years ago was that this space is trustless, right? That I don't have to trust a bank anymore, that I don't have to trust a government, that I don't have to trust a middleman. But the Web3 gaming space still requires a whole lot of trust.
Still, like, even what do you trust? Solana, Ethereum, Bitcoin, right? Like there's still I still think there's like a different type of trust. It's not basically, there's no trust in like a single individual or a single party, but there's still trust in these systems or mechanisms.
That's fair.
And crypto as a whole, right? Like, do you believe in this idea? Do you believe in this movement, right? There's still like a leap of faith, right? Maybe trust is even the wrong word, right? It's like,
it's straight up faith.
A faith.
I believe that this space is going to make it, so I'm putting my eggs in this basket.
Yeah, and that goes back to, right, like speak to Filipinos and speak to Argentinians if you're
because they need it to succeed.
If you're losing your faith,
right?
Talk to Filipinos and Argentinians.
I think you hit on a really good point and I'm going to go off in a little tangent here, and that idea of trust, because you're right. And this is something that I've tried to explain to my wife very often when I talk to her about crypto. It's like, oh, look, I just made this much. And it's like, all right, awesome. And it's that idea of onboarding and offboarding, or on-ramping and off-ramping. And I think that's so valuable because most people can figure out how to on-ramp funds from Coinbase or, MoonPay and things like that. But I feel like the off-ramping side of things has been very complex for the most part up until now, in terms of like when someone makes some money on a game or someone makes some money on an NFT, getting that out to actual dollars or to their bank account seems to be a convoluted process. And breaking that barrier down will build that trust between gamers because they don't feel like they're trapped into something, and it's no longer fake internet money. It's actually something tangible they're able to take advantage of. How is Ronin handling that on-ramping and off-ramping to build that trust as seamless as possible?
So a lot of the off-ramping, I guess, goes via Binance and things like that, right? So we have exchange integrations, right, where Ronin is actually directly integrated by Coinbase and by Binance, right? So that facilitates a very smooth user experience for off-ramping compared to other gaming chains.
Do you think you guys will ever get to the point where you guys don't even need Coinbase and Binance? Because that's another layer of trust that you need to have.
Correct. So the next thing is, okay, you can actually directly off-ramp from Ronin wallet to Gcash, right? And Gcash is something with 80 million users in the Philippines. So it's kind of like the Venmo, right? But imagine if everyone in our country used Venmo. And that's what then you get Gcash, right? And so we actually have a direct integration with Gcash. So yeah, basically, right, I think the next step is going directly from these crypto wallets, to your things like Venmo, Cash App, etc. And then connection to your bank account, or to cash from there.
Yeah, that's huge, because I think that would tear down a lot of the barriers that a lot of people feel like they have right now. They feel like, hey, now I have this token, I don't really know what to do with it, and it's like a 10-step process to go from some random chain.
Related to this is we actually just released with CoinsPH a Philippines peso stablecoin on the Ronin network, right? So we are actually like experimenting and innovating when it comes to basically making it seamless, right? For people, like some of the Filipinos, like I don't know how much a US dollar is worth, I guess. I know in certain cases, right? It's just, and also with merchants and accepting US dollars, right? Or USDC or ETH, right? It's a bit more complicated, but if they just accept the peso, okay, right? Like they're now able to accept crypto, and it's a lot more seamless, and they don't have any like currency fluctuation or complicated tax implications.
So you guys are literally solving end to end. I mean, that's the goal, is that you're solving every step of the way for your users, and your primary users are the Philippines. So let's solve all of their problems when it comes to actually interacting with us.
Because everything that we see in the Philippines will eventually happen across the world. And the Philippines is just, right, like the epicenter of crypto gaming adoption, right? So people are like, when will the traditional gaming influencers get in, the streamers, right? Well, actually, right, like we do have famous and the top cosplayer who won like #1 TikToker in the Philippines, right? She's actually part of, right, like the Ronin community. She makes content for games such as Ragnarok Monster World, right? Ragnarok's kind of like the RuneScape of Asia, right? So that's Myrtle, right? So we actually have like mainstream influencers in the Philippines. We have mainstream e-commerce and partnerships. So we believe that is just like a sneak peek into the future that we'll see eventually globally. And yeah, so what you're getting at here is that although we enter this market via gaming, it's because we think that gamers are the most are the best first cohort of users. But eventually we see Ronin becoming the largest blockchain, period. This is actually happening, right? Where right now, Ronin is already the #1 most used blockchain in the world on a daily basis. And it's just a gaming chain. And there are only, right, 16 or so IPs on the chain. And we're starting to see it happen.
With that idea of Ronin being the biggest chain in the world, I think we see other chains that have a focus on gaming, or that want to be called the home of gaming, focus on a lot of other things. They have DeFi, they have DePIN, they have RWAs, they have all these other things. But right now, like you said, Ronin is focused on gaming. Do you feel like that's intentional? Were you guys open to those other areas in the future? Or do you guys just have a conviction in gaming enough that you think that's all you need to be the biggest blockchain in the world?
Well, first you have to focus. You have to dominate at the thing that you're specialized at, right? That's what we learned from our Asian moms, is like pick one thing and like be super, super good at it. And then, right, you can use that to springboard into other areas. So right now we're focused on onboarding gamers, getting the best games onto Ronin, and getting fucking gamers, getting users. And then, right, that opens up opportunities, right? Gcash, Philippines peso, stablecoin, right? All these things, they're not possible to come to Ronin unless, hey, we have the users, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. The users come from the gaming, and then you can unlock all of the other use cases after that. Talking about the games and getting users there to play, I do want to talk a little bit about Axie, your flagship game that you guys launched initially. I think my first introduction to Axie was in 2021, as with most people. I mean, I think back to like that Bankless episode that you did when you guys were first blowing up. You'd been around for a minute, but that was like, you blew up, came out. It seemed like you came out of nowhere. I'm sure you were doing a lot behind the scenes to make that happen. But to crypto, it was like, oh my gosh, where did these guys come from? And then a lot of those users, the crypto users anyway, left the scene when the market cycle switched and people get depressed and they can't hang on in a bear. And now those users are coming back in 2024. And what you guys have built at Axie might look pretty drastically different right now than it looked in 2024. So if I'm maybe I'm an old guy that I saw your game a couple of years ago, but I'm re-entering crypto. I want to get back on Ronin. What does Axie look like now compared to what it looked like at the height of the last bull market?
So the first thing that you'll probably notice is that, well, Axie Classic, the flagship game, right, that onboarded millions last cycle, it's actually still around, and it's actually been improved and made a lot better since the last time people checked it out. So we have Axie Classic. We also have Axie Origins, which actually has free starter Axies, so anyone can get started. And we have a land game, right? Axie Homeland, where you can harvest resources. There's also like the social MMO aspect, right? Where you can kind of gather in town, hang out, like a kind of Club Penguin vibe. And Axies are also now dynamic NFTs, right? So you can actually upgrade your Axie over time. This is actually too ahead of its time. People don't really appreciate how big of a step forward this is for the entire space. Basically, you can now improve your Axie. You can get experience points for it by playing different games. Right, the amount of experience points that you earn is, basically balanced by the difficulty of the game, right? How many people are playing that game? You get experience points, and then spend tokens, right? So this is also helping to balance the economy, right? So rather than just earning tokens in game, you can now also use those tokens that you earn by playing to improve your Axie, right? If you don't want to spend that time to earn, you can obviously just buy the tokens, right? And so Axies are becoming dynamic NFTs. They evolve as you play with them. Axie is also, right, the #1 NFT project by monthly revenue right now, right? So Axie has around $300,000 in monthly revenues, and based on all the data I checked, right, that actually makes it #1 in all of the NFTs, right, compared to all the like ETH NFT projects, etc. Like their royalties obviously have gotten really hurt by different things that are happening on ETH mainnet. And yeah, so Axie is fucking back. Axie never left, and yeah, it's definitely like a staple of the Ronin network. So I see Axie as like the Mario of Ronin, right? It's the iconic first IP.
It's your big IP,
right? It's the iconic first IP. There will be times where sometimes it takes a backseat, and sometimes where it becomes even more prominent again. But it's gonna keep chugging along, right? And there are just so many Axie games, right? We got Classic, Origins, Homeland. There's Project T. There's Duet Monsters. Tons of games made by the community, and so yeah, Axie is chugging along.
I appreciate the fact that, how do I put this, that you guys have actually successfully built a world out of Axie. I think I've heard a lot of games over the years say like, we're building a universe. We're not just building one game. And you guys have gotten to the point now that you can call it Axie Classic, like WoW Classic, right? You've actually built enough that you've got to have the subtitle on your original game.
So we brought it back, right? So actually, my thesis is that bringing Axie Classic back is one of the catalysts, or maybe the main catalyst that helped start to revive Ronin and NFT, Web3 gaming in general over the fall. So we brought it back, and this is the only experience in Web3 gaming that's old enough for people to feel nostalgic about. People were crying.
That's true.
People were literally crying. They were on the ground when we brought back Axie Classic, because it brings back so many memories, right? This is literally a game that also saved lives during the pandemic, according to our community, right?
Yeah.
So it's a very, I would say, historically significant game, and we actually had put it kind of into wind down mode. We had stripped out all the rewards from it and focused mainly on Origins. But we felt like, hey, like people were still playing Axie Classic without any rewards at all. That's how we knew, we're like, hey, we need to.
You created something that people have loved. Yeah. I mean, it makes me think about like. Dude, I don't know. When COVID was around, that was probably the time that I played the most Fortnite with my wife and my friends. And then they changed and didn't necessarily love the direction it went. And then they released that like nostalgic Fortnite OG, and everyone was back and so excited. And the same thing happened with WoW. When they dropped WoW Classic, what was that, in 2020 or so? Everyone wants to go back and play the game that they really loved back in the day. It's awesome. I love that.
There's something about like the first game that a team puts out that hits.
Yep.
And the thought and kind of it's always a little bit different. And to be honest, you know why? It's because like those are the original employees, right, working on it, right? Like the original kernel of genius is there. And it's a little bit before, right, the team like gets big or whatever. You hire a bunch of people. It's always
how many
like
of you were working on? Do you know? Like, do you remember the size of the team when Axie was first being made?
It was like 30, yeah. Like,
and what is the size of the team? So now inside
people.
Of your guys' giant network,
like 200 plus, right?
Cool.
Employees in SkyMapes. Obviously, we're doing a lot. We have a lot of products, right?
Cool. Yeah, that makes sense. I have another question just while we're talking about like nostalgia. I think there are maybe gamers less so, but definitely crypto users. I run into a lot. We've been around since before the last market cycle and everything as well. Lately, I've been running into a lot of people that have come back since then, and they're just really upset about everything. They're like, look how low this market cap is compared to what it was in the height of 2021. If someone's looking at, when Axie was at, I think you guys had like a $10 billion market cap or something, to where it is now. And I think right now you still have the largest market cap for a game in the crypto space. But obviously it's not 10 billion anymore. Yeah. The market cycled. What would you say to those users that are just, they're salty about a lower market cap?
Well, market cap is not the thing to optimize for, right? What you want to be optimizing for is, right, number of people playing the game, as well as, right, the revenue that's going into the treasury, right, that's owned by everyone who's a part of the game, right? Everyone who owns the Axis token, right, is basically owning a piece of the community treasury, right? So the market cap, that's going to be something that fluctuates a ton over time, right? Like last cycle we had a huge metaverse moment, right? Where
and now you hear nobody talk about that.
Facebook changed their name to Meta.
To Meta.
They copied our logo, right? Like things were getting super wild last cycle, right? But that was just an acceleration, right? We had during COVID an acceleration of a lot of trends, and then a little bit of a counter push against that, right? Once COVID ended, people started to go outside again, right? But in general, people are spending more time inside, more time on their phones.
Yep, exactly. I have one more question just about Axie specifically before I let Caesar ask some. I know if you were to jump in 2021 and play Axie Infinity, it felt fairly expensive, right? We were at the height of everything. People were having to borrow stuff from other people. There was the rental programs. There was the team programs to make sure that I could afford to play. It's not that way anymore. So if I wanted to come in right now to play any of the games in the Axie universe, what is my cost basis?
You can get started if you want to even spend money, right? Like you can play Origins with free Axies for free to see, hey, do you like the art? Do you think that this universe is cute? Do you like some of the battle mechanics? You can play for free. But if you want a team, I would say, you can spend around $2 to $3 per Axie. I think $3 per Axie. So I think you can get a team of 3 Axies for about $10.
And speaking of bringing back this nostalgia, another thing that you guys also did was building the bounty board program, which allowed a lot of people who maybe hadn't played Axie in a while to come back and actually check in, because they felt like, I have daily tasks that I can complete. And that actually had me checking in. I really only played Origins for a while, and then I was like, wait, now I can go try Classic and see what that's like. I was getting my butt kicked in Classic. I'll tell you that. There's a different breed of players out there compared to Origins. So, but it really got me checking in.
The Classic players are super sweaty, right?
Yeah, it was definitely a different breed out there. What do you think? Why do you think the bounty board was such a success, and how are you guys planning to improve on that with the premium bounty board coming out?
So the bounty board is an example of the cross-pollination that happens between the different games on the Ronin network, right? So basically, we saw that Pixels had created this kind of quest system or this task board system where you can basically exchange resources in game for different amounts of pixel. And that was like a really, really interesting way for them to maintain their momentum post TGE, right? A way for them to use their token to continue to add on to the momentum after their play to airdrop campaign had ended, right? So one of the things that we're thinking is like one of the issues with Axie is we already had the TG already listed on Coinbase, already listed on Binance. A lot of the catalysts, right, in terms of the token and the economy, right, have already been used. And so we're like, hey, this taskboard thing from Pixels, what would it look like if we did something like that in the Axie universe, right? So that's where the initial idea came from. And then, the idea that, hey, if we're really here to teach people how to use Web3, if that's the thing, right? If we're here to onboard people and make Web3 a habit, well, let's make a product that combines Axie and this use of Web3 on a daily basis. And let's reward people for it, and then let's see what happens. And that was actually something that led to, right, a 300% increase in the number of daily active addresses for Axie. So now, compared to 3 months ago, there are 3 times more men and women playing Axie than just 3 months ago.
A 3x in that short of time is, that's fantastic, especially in this market. I think, and I say this market, I'm pretty freaking bullish right now. Like, I stand on the fact that we are in a bull market. It is a great time in crypto. But I think there's a little bit of a hesitancy in the air in the crypto gaming sector for sure. And you guys are not just Axie. I mean, Pixel is dominating, Aperon is dominating. I'm curious about that specifically. Like, I look at the way that you guys have essentially paved the road, right? From my perspective, I don't know if you were the very first, but from my perspective, you were definitely my first experience with the play to earn game. And I think a lot of games over the years have taken inspiration from you guys. And I'm curious, like, is that a compliment? Is that a burden? Is that, how do you handle games wanting to copy you when, if you are the first one, you're going to have some huge successes and you're going to make some mistakes that you need to pivot on because you're trying something nobody else has ever done before. And then they're just carbon copying the things that you had before you pivoted. What does that look like for you guys being maybe one of the forerunners that people want to copy? How do you handle that?
Usually we just ignore it. But the good thing is that now, hey, like, there are teams like, okay, if they're taking the idea of play to earn, but they're putting their own twist on it, right? So all innovation comes from a twist on a classic, right? So if we say that, okay, play to earn is the base principle that we introduce into the world, right? Different teams will have their different takes on it. If they just exactly copy what we did with Axie, it's not going to work. But if they take that inspiration and put a twist on it, like Pixels did, right, then they have the chance of doing something really unique and special. So, and then the cool thing, right, is that, hey, we can take that and then apply that into Axie, right, turn that into some sort of a playbook and teach that to all of the other games that are also on the Ronin network. So now you have these other teams on Ronin that are, hey, okay, we're going to do something similar, our own take on the Axie bounty board, the Pixels task board, et cetera, right? So this is basically, right, like cross-pollination between the different projects. And I think that's like one of the interesting things that we're seeing on Ronin is all the different teams are learning from each other. They're cross-pollinating mechanics and cross-pollinating community members.
Right. I mean, it's like the theory that there's no such thing as a new song, right? There's only a limited number of notes. And so if you're writing a song on a guitar or a piano, you're probably writing something that somebody 1,000 years ago also wrote. But you're putting your spin on it. You're putting your twist on it. You're achieving something new with it. And so as long as they're just taking the things that you guys have grown and built and finding a way to evolve it with a new angle.
Speaking of cross-pollination, I think another way that you guys show this very clearly in your ecosystem is the fact that anytime a game launches on Ronin, any gamer that's living on Ronin is willing to try that game out, even if it's outside of their comfort zone or usually the playstyle that they tend to sort of lean to. I don't think this is by accident. I think you guys have built a community that just loves anything that happens on Ronin and really rallies behind anything built on your chain. Why do you think this happens to be? Do you think it's just the community and the trust that you guys have built for ensuring that anything that comes to the blockchain is of quality? Or what do you think is behind that idea of like everyone just rallying behind everything new?
There's a feeling of ownership. So let's think about myself, okay? I'm an owner of Sky Mavis, where we have stakes in Ronin and Axie, right? So any new product that we put out there, I'm going to be trying it out, right? First of all, I need to know how to market it, right? I need to know how to best position it to the world, right? So I need to be a user of it. But guess what? Actually, that's the same thing as all of our users, as long as they own, right, the RON token, right? So basically, the RON token is this way of aligning incentives between our players, the user base, between all the games that are coming onto the Ronin network, right? Because the RON token, right, it captures value from, right, DEX fees, NFT volume, right? So basically, there's this incentive alignment between all the holders of the token, who happen to also, right, like be players of the games, and all the games that are coming onto the network. That's the thing that people don't really understand, and that's the thing that is part of, or the foundation of, that willingness, right, for the community members to try out these different games, because they are, right, like basically you can think of them as like incentive aligned with all these games that are coming on. How did this happen? Part of it actually goes back to Axie, right? So when we were distributing the RON token, we were like, how do we get the Axie players to have exposure to the future of this network, right? So that's why we made like Axis and SLP actually especially was doubly strong in the RON token farming, right? To be the strongest thing. So the community members that were really thinking long term, they're like, okay, I'm going to use my SLP to farm RON. And then boom, right? Like you have like the strongest grinders and the longest term thinkers owning RON. And then boom, like you create this system where, they're interested in trying out all the different games.
Speaking of trying out different games, one thing I've noticed, and I think it's probably intentional because of some of the stuff you were saying earlier about focusing on the Philippines and focusing on Asian markets, it does feel like a lot of your games are like maybe not necessarily the same genre, but like similar genres. There, you mentioned before that you're looking for games that are easier to ship or faster to ship. It's not going to take 5 years to build or something like that. Do you think that there will come a time when you have games and genres that the West is particularly interested in, things like shooters or MMOs or FPSs, or is that day coming for Ronin, or do you guys want to continue to focus on the genres that seem to be important to Philippine gamers, Asian gamers, things like that?
MMOs are a genre that unite the world. And that's what we're seeing with Forgotten Runes, right? They just did their... It's about to
was
end
like 2 days ago,
hours. Right? No, it's just about to end in an hour. I'm sad, like... but, obviously it was worth it to hang out with you guys.
We stole you away when you could be playing.
Yeah, I should have woken up early. But that's what we're seeing, right? Is like MMOs like Forgotten Runes. Lumiterra also has the CBT next week. And there's a chance, right, that this can be the type of game that unifies and has gamers from all over the world. And so yeah, like I think I do think that things like MMOs will bring in a different archetype of player to the Ronin network, and for sure. And yeah, I'm definitely excited. FPS, less sure right now.
I mean, if you got like a Valorant or something, then you can pull in the Asian markets there too.
The problem is, dude, like FPSs are already so good. That can you make an FPS that's 10x better than Fortnite and Valorant and Apex?
I think Valorant is at its height right now, but I do think some of those games, like, I mean, I met my wife playing Call of Duty, and I think Call of Duty is at its lowest point ever right now. I have over 2,000 hours in Fortnite. I think that it's at its worst point ever. Some of those games feel like, hey, there's room for someone to break in, but the problem is, it takes years to make a game.
There's still there. It's really high barrier to entry. Those games. I think like basically MOBA and FPS, I believe, will be the last to be cracked.
Okay.
When it comes to Web3 games, MMO, right? It's like, I don't know what MMO is pretty stale right now, right? Like I grew up playing World of Warcraft, right? But it's like, if I think about like a traditional MMO right now that I would go back into Web2 gaming for, like, it's not really.
They're not really. Everything's old. Or they're launching. What's the one you were into, Caesar? The Amazon one. They launch and they're interesting for like 12 months and then they die. So you're right. That's an industry ripe for it. Man, I feel like if I have just listened to this conversation, I am feeling bullish on crypto gaming. I am feeling bullish on Ronin and Sky Mavis and everything that you guys are building. My thought then is two things. what should I go play right now? If there's something that you,
Mm.
as someone who is like directly in charge of getting people interested in the games, what should I go play to experience and explore what you guys are building? And then maybe, I don't want to, we were not paid for this episode, so I'll say this is not shilling. I think ownership is everything. Your last 2 answers ago talking about ownership is so important. One time, I know you've been on the Bankless show. I was talking to Ryan one time about how you get people to really care more about what's happening in crypto. And his answer was exactly the same thing. You just get them to own something. Because if you own a piece of it, you really want it to succeed. If I could go explore this space, whether that is owning something or playing something, where should I go in Ronin right now?
I would check out. It's really hard for me to give this type
That's a
of
big
recommendation.
question. No shade to whoever you don't list.
So here's what I'll do, right? There are some, I know that if you're new, right, like you're looking for some catalyst, right? Something that's also new to start your journey. That's actually one of the benefits of having new IPs coming on constantly, right? So I just tried out Forgotten Runes. So I would look out for the open beta for Forgotten Runes. We also have Lumiterra. Lumiterra is coming out with a CBT, so I try to secure a CBT spot for Lumiterra. If not, just play with the open beta as well, which should be quite soon. We also have Ragnarok Monster World. So remember, Ragnarok is kind of like RuneScape of Asia, right? So that is coming on to Ronin, right? So I would look out for that. So these are some of the new catalysts, right? If you want to play something that's right, like been live for a bit, I would definitely try out like something like Pixels. They just started Guild Wars event, right? Like hundreds of thousands of people enjoying Pixels on a daily basis right now. Axie Classic is hot right now. Origins, right? Maybe a little bit more newbie friendly. Fall in love with the universe. So those are some of the things. But I guess what you can do is follow me. I'm JIHOZ_Axie. Follow the Ronin Network on Twitter as well, and like look out for some of these opportunities with these closed beta tests, open beta tests, game launches. If you follow these 2 accounts, you're gonna basically have a endless flow of different catalysts and call to actions to start your Ronin adventure.
A full world to explore. Hey, wherever you're listening, there will be links to Jiho and Axie and Ronin and the other games that we just listed. We'll throw those links down here so you can check them out real easily. Man, thank you so much for joining us. This has been a pleasure, a blast. We will see you guys next time on 100X. Make sure that you go show some love to everything in the Ronin ecosystem. See you next time.